Strength versus weakness. USC versus LSU. I'm going to break it down.
You are Locked On Trojans, your daily podcast on the USC Trojans. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Fight on, everyone. I'm your host, Mark Cusano, and thank you for making Locked On USC part of the Locked On Network, your first listen every single day. Whether you're watching the show on YouTube, wherever you are downloading your podcast, the show is always free, and the show will always appreciate your support. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. As the playoffs wind down, the sports, they're just not sporting like we want them to. But this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. All right. USC versus LSU. I've been talking about this during the entire offseason. Number one, I cannot wait for this game to start. This game has been meant to be played since going back to 2003, 2004, when they had to share that national championship. These two teams this year are mirror images of each other. Right? I've spoken about it. I've talked about it at length. Replacing defensive coaching staff, replacing Heisman Trophy winners at quarterback. You know, both really bad on defense last year, both really potent on offense. With that said, each team has strengths, each team has weaknesses. So, I think Vegas is a little bit off with the opening line. So, with that said, we're going to talk about three things, three strengths, three weaknesses. LSU's offensive line versus USC's defensive line. That is LSU's strength, right? USC's perceived weakness, the defensive line. The Tigers are supposed to have one of the top offensive lines in all of college football in 2024. Both of their starting tackles are considered NFL draft choices, first round, second round. So that doesn't mean that they're going to be great across the board. They're great on the bookends. They got a couple of solid guards. With that said, they do have a new center that they're going to be plugging in. So this might be one area that USC might want to attack in game one. LSU, they're going to have a new center. His name is DJ Chester. And I think everybody should anticipate, including LSU fans, that he's probably going to have some good moments, some bad moments. Now, according to one LSU insider, this is how he describes DJ Chester. He should be significantly better than their former center, last name Turner. Chester is bigger, stronger, more athletic, and once he gets down the leadership aspect of playing center, I think LSU has a top 5 center in the conference by the end of the year. Turner was fine, and he was an excellent communicator, but Chester's talent level will quickly play a big role in the run game and further elevate the ceiling of this offense. So if I'm Antonlynn, USC's new defensive coordinator, and I'm Coach Sean Nua and Coach Eric Henderson, I am going to make sure LSU's new center, when he starts in that first game, I'm going to remind him, wear your brown pants. Okay. If you're a Deadpool fan, you understand the point. I want to make USC's defensive coaching staff needs to make him poop his pants. That's why you want to wear brown pants. Disguise the blitz packages. Do a lot of stunts, do a lot of twists, confuse the young man. He might call out the signals, but once he's done, he's got to, all of a sudden his eyes are going to get like this. He's not going to know where things are coming from. With that being said, now, LSU is going to test USC's run defense, right? They should, they better. They have to. This is what Garrett Nussmeier, LSU's starting quarterback, had to say about their run game. Yeah, I think all of our backs are going to do a really good job for us this year. Caleb Jackson, Josh Williams, Caden Durham, they're all really, really good, and they care. They care about us. They care about our team. They care about our offense. So read the tea leaves. It sounds like Brian Kelly is going to lean on his offensive line and use the run game to help facilitate Garrett Nussmeier at quarterback for the passing game. So Strength one, I think you want to give the edge to LSU's O-line versus USC's defensive line. How about point number two? Can LSU's new wide receivers get the job done against USC's secondary? So you got LSU's new wide receivers. They're the ones they were using last year, both of them, they got drafted in the first round. There's no more Malik Neighbors. There's no more Brian Thomas. USC secondary returns. Okay. And I think everyone would agree it's going to be the strength of their defense. LSU is not going to be void of playmakers on the outside. It's still LSU. I just don't think they have anybody with experience that they can point to right now and say, that's the guy that's going to, test USC secondary. You got guys like Kyron Lacey, Chris Hilton. You've got CJ Daniels, Xavier Thomas, a couple of sophomores, Shelton Sampson, Kyle Parker. And then they brought in two freshmen, Jelani Watkins and Killen Billette, who I believe was a top 100 player. So, again, this is why I believe that LSU is going to try and lean into that run game, lean into that offensive line. It's a lot of pressure to bring in Garrett Nussmeier, who, he had a really good bowl game once Jaden Daniels sat out. And, again, you're losing your top playmakers at the wide receiver position. So running game, and I think Brian Kelly, he's probably going to lean into their tight end. They got a really good one. His name's Mason Taylor, until that wide receiver group can find its footing. So again, this is why I think Brian Kelly is going to want to establish the run game. And USC secondary definitely has the advantage going up against Nussmeier and his wide receivers. Let me think about it. You got John Humphrey, DeCarlos Nicholson. First of all, Nicholson came over from Mississippi State, so he knows the LSU roster pretty well. John Humphrey came over from UCLA. Those are your projected starters. If not those guys, you got Jacoby Covington, Prophet Brown, right there. 4 guys, a ton of experience. A couple of younger guys playing cornerback. You got Marcellus Williams, Malachi Crawford. Safety, Kamari Ramsey, Achille Arnold, Anthony Beavers, Zion Branch, Bryson Shaw. He gets to come back and he doesn't have to deal with Alex Grinch and that scheme. Don't forget, you got Jalen Smith, Greedy Vance playing nickel. Younger, you got Christian Pierce, Jarvis Boatwright Jr., Marquise Gallegos. They were the latter two. They were early enrollees. They're waiting in the wings. I really think USC secondary can potentially have a big impact on this game. Here's the third point I want to focus on: the play calling from Coach Riley. I think this is going to be, if he leans into his full playbook, not the one he's been using in his first 2 years, the whole playbook that Coach Riley has, I think he has the advantage this year. Brian Kelly is a very good offensive coach, don't get me wrong. But if Coach Riley uses his running game, he's going to help his defense. I just don't want to see him slide into his comfort zone. I don't want to see him go back to that. We're going to throw it 35 times a game because I can get guys open all the time. And he can. I want him to stick to his word, what he said after spring camp, where he said, and I talked about it on yesterday's episode of Locked on USC, I do think we're going to have the ability right now to move the ball, to move people off the ball than we've had in the first 2 years. We got a little bit more mass and a little bit more girth with us. And we're starting to look more like an offensive line at USC, what it should look like. And I think that's really exciting. Now, I talked about it at the top. These two teams are mirror images of each other. Okay, last year, both teams played crappy defense. No other way to say it. I'm not going to sugarcoat it for anybody. Last year, LSU gave up 161 yards on the ground. Okay. That was better than USC's 186 yards per game that they surrendered. It's not that much better, but it's better. Last year, UCLA's run defense was at the top of the pop charts, right? Number 2 in the country. They only gave up 80 yards per game. You know that when I'm not performing here on Locked on USC, I spend my other time over there on WeAreUSA.com. Today we did the Inside the Trojans Huddle show, me and Chris Arledge. We did a little duo, and I said, if USC can show significant improvement and have a rush defense that only gives up 130 yards per game, I would be ecstatic. That's going to put USC's defense near the top 30 on the rushing side of the ball. USC is considered a top 5 team in the big conference. The preseason polls are coming out. USC is a top 5 team. LSU was just voted a top 5 team at the SEC Media Day. Again, mirror image. So what are we looking at? Who has the advantage? USC versus LSU. I think LSU has the advantage, at least until USC can prove it. Offensive line versus USC's defensive line. When it comes to the passing game, I think USC's defense in the secondary will have the advantage over LSU. But I think it's going to be one of those close games. I don't think it's going to be 6.5 points. That's for sure. And you know where I feel. I think USC is going to come out on the winning side of the ledger on this one. We'll find out in 40 days. I love sports. I love USC football. I love USC basketball. I love hockey. I love basketball. I love them so much. I never want them to stop. But we're done with the playoffs right now. We're just waiting for Major League Baseball to get to the playoffs. And we're in July. So we've got fewer games. And the sports, they're just not sporting like we want them to, right? FanDuel is going to let us keep the sports going whenever we want. All you have to do is open the app, dream up any bet. If you're in the mood, make it happen. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus, and they're doing it daily. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So head on over to FanDuel.com/LockedOn and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. So you see me looking up. I right now actually have Fox Sports muted on my TV. During the day, the volume's on. Every now and then, I got to mute it, though, because someone's yelling at me. If you make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, it's a free 24/7 sports streaming channel. It's programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. You can get your analysis, you can get your opinions, and you get your news. And it's streaming for you 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. So the strength of USC's defense in 2024 is going to be their secondary. I hope I made that perfectly clear in the first segment. If not, I'm reiterating it. Again, it's deep, it's experience across the board. Doesn't matter, cornerback, nickel, safety. It's good. This is going to be very advantageous for the Trojans in 2024. I was looking at their schedule, checking out, I want to see who are the quarterbacks that USC has to defend this year? Well, there's not that very many good ones. One of the things USC fans, Trojan fans, have gotten used to growing up, watching the Pac-12, is you're playing against quarterbacks that know how to sling the rock. The Big 10 conference, Big 18, we call it the Big. They've had some pretty good quarterbacks over the years, but not nearly the top-end quality that you find with the former Pac-12 conference on an annual basis. You just don't. It's not a knock. It's just, it is what it is. So what I thought I would do is I'm going to rank the quarterbacks, the top 10 quarterbacks USC will face in 2024 from 10 to 1. And I could have done all 12, but I think you'll be able to figure out who the 2 worst ones were, or who I guess we'll say made honorable mention. We're going to put a positive spin on it at the very end. So, starting with number 10, I'm going to go with a true freshman, Dylan Raiola, Nebraska. He's got a lot of talent. Look, USC was interested in him. Lincoln Riley wanted him. He committed to everybody, decommitted from everybody, eventually settled in Nebraska. He's a true freshman. Good luck. You're going to get your ups and downs with him. but he's a talented young man. Number 9, I'm going to go with the Rutgers quarterback. Last name, Kaliakmanis. Ethan Kaliakmanis. Last year, his stats, he was 156 out of 294 passing attempts, completed 53%, 1,800 yards, 14 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. He did that for quarterbacking at Minnesota. Obviously, he needed a change of scenery. He's now going to be projected to be the starting quarterback at Rutgers. Greg Schiano needed an upgrade. Last year, their quarterback wasn't very good. I don't even have the stats, but with Greg Schiano coaching that team, you're going to have a solid defense. He just wants a manager at quarterback, someone who's not going to turn the ball over. You're looking at those stats, though, 9 interceptions. It'll be interesting to see what happens. At number 8, I'm going to go with the Michigan quarterback, assuming it's Alex Orji. Last year, 15 rushes, 86 yards, 1 touchdown. This is strictly a projection, okay? He's a really good runner. He's got size, he's got speed, and Michigan used him in certain packages. Right now, he's got 1 career passing attempt. I checked him out during the spring game. He looked a little bit more relaxed in the pocket, but because of that ability to run the ball, and it's just been one of the bane of USC's existence on defense forever. He has that added dimension. So if Michigan's new offensive coordinator can teach him how to throw the ball, we'll see. Again, I'm giving him a little bit benefit of the doubt just because of his running ability. The 7th best quarterback USC will face in 2024, it's going to be the Wisconsin quarterback, the former Miami Hurricanes quarterback, Tyler Van Dyke. He ended up at Wisconsin because the former Washington State quarterback, Cam Ward, is now the quarterback for the Miami Hurricanes. Last year, Tyler, he had his stats, 219 completions, 333 attempts. Not bad, almost 66% completion rate, 2,700 yards, 19 touchdowns. Here's the negative, 12 interceptions. So we'll see what kind of effect Luke Fickell can have with him. Number 6, Notre Dame's quarterback, Riley Leonard. And he's supposed to be the starter. At least he was going to be. He was the leading candidate before he had to have a offseason. Well, he didn't even play in the spring game because he had surgery on his ankle, stress fracture. But he brings a lot of experience, a lot of accolades over there from Duke over into South Bend. The quarterback, if it's not Riley Leonard, it's going to be the quarterback for Notre Dame that they used in their Sun Bowl appearance. His name is Steve Angeli. Number 5, heading over across town to UCLA, Ethan Garbers. His stats last year, pedestrian, okay? 98 completions, 146 pass attempts, 67% completion rate, 1,100 yards, 11 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. He was going in and out with Dante Moore, the 5-star who decided he was going to redshirt. And now Dante is hanging out up there in Oregon, backing up Dylan Gabriel, the transfer from Oklahoma. Last year, Garbers threw just 3 interceptions. Safe pick for Deshaun Foster. And I think that's what you're going to get up there this year. Again, Deshaun Foster, UCLA, they're going to lean into their running game. Ethan Garbers, safe pick, number 5. Number 4, this one might catch everybody by surprise. Do you even know the name? His name is Max Brosmer. He's taking over at quarterback for Minnesota. Last year, 294 completions out of 459 pass attempts. That's good for 64%. 3,400 yards, 29 touchdowns against 5 interceptions. Now, where did he come from? Never heard of him before. He's transferring in from New Hampshire, FCS. He was an All-American. He spent 5 years playing in New Hampshire. Won a bunch of awards. So, year 6, despite moving up from the FCS level, he's seen everything a college quarterback should see. But those stats, pretty good. Number 3. I'm going to lean into Will Rogers, the transfer from Mississippi State. He's going to be the starting quarterback for Jedd Fisch at Washington. Rogers started out really hot down there and playing for Mike Leach at Mississippi State. In 2021, 2022, he threw for 8,700 yards, 71 touchdowns, 71% completion rate. That's really, really good. In fact, in 2021, he had a 90% passing grade from PFF. That was the 10th best in the country. But again, that's when Mike Leach was coaching him. Mike Leach passed away. Zach Arnett took over the program. And apparently there was some communication problems between him and Will Rogers and his family. They said they weren't going to be changing the system. They changed the system. Rogers wasn't really the same quarterback. He's now going to be up there in Seattle playing for Jedd Fisch. Number 2, I'm going with Garrett Nussmeier, LSU's quarterback. He's Miller Moss. They're identical. 6'2", 200 pounds. Miller Moss, 6'2", 210 pounds. This is what Brian Kelly said about his new starting quarterback at the most recent SEC Media Day. He was comparing him to Jaden Daniel. He's replacing a Heisman Trophy winner. Kind of like what Miller Moss is doing. There are certainly common traits. I think the first one, certainly, if we're talking outside of the skill factor, right, the ability to throw the football. If you talk about just from the neck up, the ability to certainly translate. In other words, take the offense, take things that are taught in the classroom, and be able to translate those things to the field. His stats last year, 591 yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception. The bulk of his action came in their bowl game victory over Wisconsin, 35-31. He was 31 out of 45, 395 yards, 69% completion rate, 3 touchdowns against 1 interception. Remember, Alex Grinch is part of that defensive coaching staff now over there at Wisconsin. That's just a little side note for USC fans. Excuse me. So I got Garrett Nussmeier, number 2 on the list. Number 1, Penn State's quarterback, Drew Allar. I've been a little critical of him in the past. However, last year, 233 out of 389 passing attempts. That's good for 60%. 2,600 yards, 25 touchdowns, and only 2 interceptions. He can use his legs if he needs to. 74 rushing attempts, 206 yards, 4 touchdowns. He was probably the second best quarterback in the big conference last year. J.J. McCarthy was the best. And I read you the stats. Drew will take care of the ball. I get the impression he's not a risk taker. And that's really the criticism about him. No big plays, no explosive plays. And that's one of the reasons why they lost to Michigan. He hasn't had any success against Ohio State. We're going to see if he's ready to take that next step this season. And again, against USC secondary in Los Angeles. So is Drew ready to be the man? Or is he going to keep turtling up in big games and big situations? So those are the top 10. That means Utah State's quarterback missed the cut. And you know what? We're calling this the honorable mention list. Keep an eye on Billy Edwards, Maryland's quarterback. He's kind of my out-of-the-box choice, in fact. I wanted to put him in there at number 10. Mike Loxley is the head coach over there at Maryland. He's a really good offensive mind. And last year in the Music City Bowl, Edwards was actually the game's MVP. He was stepping in for Talea Tagovailoa, who was a younger brother. He threw a couple of touchdowns, and they won the game 31-13. So, do you agree with my list? Do you disagree with the way I have them ranking? How would you rank the quarterbacks that USC is going to face next year? Hit me up. Use the comments section on YouTube. You know where I am on Twitter. Excuse me, on X. Hit me up on Instagram. If you're a member on wearesc.com, hit me up over there. All right. So there have been a lot of some really iconic plays, memorable moments in the USC Notre Dame rivalry. If you're looking at the rundown, I put the bullet point: Mark Cusano or 4th and 9. This is a debate. There's no right answer. There's no wrong answer. This is personal opinion. Again, a lot of iconic plays, a lot of memorable moments. Probably way too many to ramble off. I could probably do an entire episode of Locked On USC just talking about USC versus Notre Dame. Obviously, you start with, for the old timers, November 30th, 1974. It's a really good starting point. After that, you can go to 2005. Look, USC needed some divine intervention to make it to the national championship game that year for the 3rd year in a row. Divine intervention being Reggie Bush. We know about the Bush push. But in my opinion, the more important play, and again, this is based on hindsight because I know how this season ends eventually, it was 4th and 9 because that's the play that kept the drive alive as well as the season. Reggie Bush was needed even more after this Notre Dame game against Fresno State. Again, divine intervention. Without Reggie Bush, USC doesn't beat Fresno State. So without 4th and 9, Matt Leinart to Dwayne Jarrett, the Bush push, it doesn't happen. And maybe, again, as I say, this is in hindsight. USC lost the game against Texas. So as iconic as the Bush push was, and as iconic as 4th and 9 was, such a big play, I'm going with Mark Cusano, knocking down the Ron Powles pass, ending that 13-game winless streak. To me, that play means more. For that reason, it ended that 13-game winless streak. I cried. I dropped to my knees. Yeah. I wish we had camera phones back then. You would have saw it all. I mean, Mark Cusano, if Anthony Davis is not, he is the Irish killer. I went back November 30th. November 30th, 1974. That's where it started. Well, right behind him, Mark Cusano. He is the second Irish killer. He started a 3-game winning streak when he knocked the pass down. In 1996, he knocked down a pass in overtime. It stopped that 13-year drought. And it literally, you know me, I'm not a fan about rushing the field. I was okay with it then because of the circumstances. USC won that game 27-20. It was huge. It was massive. It was needed. The following year in South Bend, Mark wasn't done. He intercepted a pass in the 4th quarter. It set up the game-winning field goal. That made it 2 in a row. And then 1998. It was, yeah. He intercepted, he had another interception. It was in the 1st quarter. USC's defense dominated that game. They won. They actually shut out Notre Dame 10-0. So the reason why I'm going with 1996, Mark Cusano jumping up in the middle of the field, knocking down that pass. All of a sudden, everybody went, and then it was just pure pandemonium. Yeah. Because of that, I was able to hear Coach Holtz say this about his last game coaching against USC. I feel like somebody reached into my stomach and pulled out my guts. I've never felt this low. Let me read that again, USC fans. I feel like somebody reached into my stomach and pulled out my guts. I have never felt this low. That's how you want Notre Dame, their head coach, their players, their fans to feel after every time USC beats them. Just like Coach Lou described, just like that. And here's the other thing that Lou reflected on. Had Notre Dame won that game, they would have gone on to the Fiesta Bowl, top 5 team, top 5 finish. Because they lost that game, and because they didn't have any bowl affiliation with the Bowl Alliance, which was the program at the time. They didn't go bowling. They had to sit home. So yeah, that's why 1996, Mark Cusano doing what he did, to me, the most iconic play in my USC versus Notre Dame lifetime. Trust me, I get it. 4th and 9, significant. Bush push, significant. But that one, for me, that's my play. Do you disagree? Do you agree? Let me know. Hey, that's it. That's this episode. It's done. Look at that. I'm going to be back with another episode tomorrow. I will be coming to you from Indianapolis when I record the show. See what kind of early feedback I have from Big Conference Media Day. I might have some recruiting information. Who knows? I'll keep you going. You like the show? Do me a favor. You're watching on YouTube. Let's keep the community growing. Become a subscriber. Smash that thumbs up like you're the Hulk and click that bell notification button. That way you do not miss an episode. And you do not want to miss an episode because we are really, really getting close to the season. So until then, everyone, you know what to do.